4 years ago, our country transformed domestic abuse law with the Domestic Abuse and Civil Proceedings Act. It just so happened to take us 45 years more than everyone else. We have lagged behind the rest of the British Isles for far too long. It is highly disappointing to see such a prosperous country like that of Northern Ireland offer little more than a shadow of the protections that other jurisdictions already had in place. In fact, prior to 2021, Northern Ireland held no specific law dedicated to domestic violence. Instead, this crime was handled under general criminal law statutes, such as the Offences Against the Persons Act 1861. While the 2021 legislative change was a welcome and needed one, finally providing a clear, dedicated framework for addressing domestic violence, criminalising coercive and controlling behaviours, and recognising them as forms of abuse, it is simply not enough. Why is it acceptable for our country to fall behind those around us? Why is it that we are so consistently late in these legislative changes? Is this yet another devastating runoff effect of the Troubles, or simply the result of a negligent government? England passed the Domestic Violence and Matrimonial Proceedings Act in 1976, and yet we saw no concrete equivalent until just 4 years ago. Similarly, the criminalisation of coercive and controlling behaviour was put in place back in 2015 for England and Wales, while Northern Ireland didn't see these legal changes until March of 2021. While recent developments have made strides in the right direction, one offence alone will not improve criminal justice responses in Northern Ireland. This isn't a simple problem with our laws, but a fatal flaw that lies within our entire system. Strategies like that of the Ending Violence Against Women and Girls and the Domestic and Sexual Abuse strategy are vital in moving forward, but we can't rely solely on the strength of legal documents. Change will only come when we work together to overcome the flaws in our community as a whole. Perhaps our biggest flaw comes not with how perpetrators are punished, but with how difficult it can be for a victim to come forward about such violence. Fear of retaliation, stigma, and shame can make it hard for a victim to come forward. Worse yet, when a victim does decide to speak up, facing the justice system is often daunting and overwhelming. Trials can last anywhere from 6 months to a year. Requirements to provide sufficient evidence and a lack of available assistance can make an already traumatic experience worse for victims. Cases regarding domestic abuse can and should be streamlined to avoid victims feeling pressured and dropping a trial out of fear or anxiety. Additional help and safeguarding should be provided to cases that don't go to court in addition to those who do. Such additional safeguarding would help those who are financially dependent on their abuser and who may be facing financial constraints. Accessing emergency service and housing may be difficult without immediate financial resources, and helping those who find themselves in these positions should be a priority so that accessing help is not conditional but rather universal. Solving problems regarding accessible help, however, does not solve the issue of why we are facing this seems to be such a prevalent issue in our communities. Is it our education system? Is there a lack of focus on teaching young people what constitutes a healthy relationship? Or perhaps are we seeing the continued issue of a lack of empathy and a lack of intervention? Regardless, these issues we find ourselves with are unacceptable. These are situations that should never be happening in the first place. What use is a system proficient in reactionary change when we are seeing a failure in prevention? Just several weeks ago, I attended a vigil to address the harrowing deaths of women across Northern Ireland, and I can confidently tell you that I never wish to have to do the same again. But so long as women have to fear for their safety in their own homes, I will. Until we teach our young people to recognise the faults in our communities and to do better, I will. This shouldn't be about shame. We should be able to recognise just how far we've come while also realising how far we still have left to go. It's time for us to stop following in the footsteps of those around us and to instead forge our own paths.